Fred was no stranger to the high life in Lagos. The city, known for its endless nightlife, was the perfect playground for someone like him, a man with no strings attached, constantly hopping from one adventure to the next. His phone was filled with contacts of women from all walks of life, young professionals, party girls, even older women with their own allure. Each encounter was a new thrill, a new escape from reality. One warm Friday night, Fred found himself at the Bar Lounge, a popular spot in Victoria Island known for its flashy lights and trendy crowd. It was here he met Shola, a 28-year-old businesswoman with a sharp smile and a quick wit. She was everything Fred enjoyed: intelligent, self-assured, and ambitious. She caught his eye from across the bar, sitting alone, her phone in hand, dressed in a sleek red dress. Fred approached her with his usual charm, and they quickly found common ground over shared interest in luxury cars and travel. Shola wasn't afraid to speak her mind, teasing Fred about his player reputation. As the night wore on, the two of them went to a nearby hotel for a private after-party. Shola, though confident and bold, kept her emotions in check, something Fred admired. She wasn't looking for anything more than a fun time, and that suited Fred just fine. They spent the night together, but by morning, Shola was gone, leaving Fred with nothing but a message saying, "Don't bother calling me again." Fred didn't think much of it. It was just another night, another woman. A few weeks later, Fred found himself at Sky Bar, one of Lagos's rooftop bars with an incredible view of the city skyline. This time, the woman he met wasn't a stranger to the scene. Her name was Tolu, and she was an old acquaintance from his university days. Tolu was now a popular social media influencer with over 1 million followers, known for her glamorous life and sharp fashion sense. Tolu greeted Fred with a warm hug, clearly happy to see him again. The chemistry between them was immediate. They reminisced about their university days and how they'd never really hung out back then. Fred couldn't help but be drawn to Tolu's confidence and beauty, but it was her influence that intrigued him more. She was always in the spotlight, always surrounded by cameras, always on the go. As the night progressed, Fred found himself tangled in a whirlwind of events. Tolu invited him to an exclusive club in Lekki, where they mingled with other celebrities and influencers. The night was filled with laughter, drinks, and flirtations. Fred and Tolu slipped away from the crowd, retreating to a private booth. But as the night grew older, Fred started noticing something strange. Tolu was always on her phone, always replying to messages, and it felt like she wasn't fully present. When Fred asked her about it, she shrugged it off, telling him it was just work. By the end of the night, Fred realized he wasn't just another man in her life, he was another notch in her belt. After a quick goodbye, she was gone, back to her world of fame and followers, leaving Fred to reflect on how fleeting their connection had been. Fred wasn't one to let a couple of meaningless encounters get him down. A few days after his run-in with Tolu, he found himself at Bungalow Restaurant, a cozy spot in Ikoyi where the well-heeled of Lagos came to enjoy good food and good company. It was a quiet afternoon when he noticed Ngozi, a striking woman in her mid-40s, sitting alone by the window, sipping her drink. She was the type of woman Fred never really considered before, but there was something alluring about her mature confidence and elegance. Ngozi was a successful lawyer who ran her own firm, and it didn't take long for Fred to be drawn into conversation with her. She was poised, intelligent, and witty, with a captivating presence that made Fred feel both relaxed and intrigued. Ngozi wasn't like the younger women he usually went for. She didn't want the flashy nights out or the attention-seeking dates. She wanted something real, and Fred found himself fascinated by her. As the day passed into night, Fred found himself at Ngozi's upscale apartment, a sleek, modern place in Victoria Island. There, they shared an intimate dinner, talking about everything from politics to relationships. Fred enjoyed the genuine conversation, but he quickly realized that Ngozi wasn't interested in just a fling. She was clear about what she wanted. She was looking for stability, not another short-term affair. Despite their different outlooks on relationships, Fred found himself spending the night with Ngozi. He left her apartment the next morning with a sense of nostalgia, realizing that while he wasn't ready for what Ngozi wanted, he couldn't help but admire her. She had left him a note. "It was nice, Fred. But maybe we're both looking for different things." It was one more woman who had come and gone in his life, but this time, something felt different. Fred thought he was just another playboy, caught up in the game of casual encounters and fleeting relationships. But when he met Bella, everything changed. She was different from the others. There was something innocent about her, something that made him want to slow down and actually get to know her. Bella was a Gen Z girl, fresh, young, and full of life. She had an energy that Fred had never experienced before. They met at Lagos's Art Cafe, a quiet, trendy spot in Lekki where young creatives gathered. Bella was sitting alone, sketching in a notebook, her long braids cascading over her shoulders. Fred was immediately struck by her beauty, but more so by her quiet confidence. He introduced himself, and the two of them quickly hit it off. There was no pretense with Bella. She was genuine, thoughtful, and, most importantly, she didn't seem to want anything from him. It was a refreshing change from the women Fred had known. For the first time, Fred felt like he was truly falling for someone. Bella was sweet, simple, and yet mysterious, qualities Fred had never associated with his past flings. He spent more time with her over the following weeks, taking her to local markets, enjoying quiet dinners, and even taking long walks along the Lekki Koiling Bridge. But Fred's carefree days of multiple lovers were about to be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Fred began to act differently. What once seemed like innocence started to feel like manipulation. At first, it was small things, comments about Fred's work, how he should be making more money, how his lifestyle wasn't up to her standard. Fred brushed it off, thinking it was just her being young and ambitious. But as time went on, Bella's demands grew. She asked for expensive gifts, trips abroad, and fine dining, all of which Fred was happy to provide. But there was always something new she wanted, and Fred couldn't keep up. One night, after another extravagant dinner, Bella snapped. "Is this all you can offer me, Fred? You think this is enough?" she sneered. "I need more." Fred was taken aback. The innocent girl he had fallen for now seemed like a stranger. Fred didn't know what to do. His lifestyle wasn't enough for Bella. She began to make him feel like he wasn't living up to her expectations. It seemed like no matter what he did, it was never enough. She mocked him for his modest car, for his small apartment, and for the work he did. Bella would often ask him to quit his job, saying, "You can do better, Fred. You're wasting your time." Fred was confused. He didn't want to lose her, but he also didn't want to change everything just to satisfy her. Still, the pressure weighed heavily on him. He started taking up extra side jobs and even gambling in hopes of impressing her. But no matter how much he earned, it was never enough. Fred didn't know what to make of it, but as he walked away from the market, the words haunted him. A week later, Fred's life took an even darker turn. One night, as he was lying in bed, trying to sleep, his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. He answered it cautiously. A deep, raspy voice greeted him on the other end. "Fred, you don't know me, but I know about you and Bella. She's been using you. She's been using you for something far more sinister than you realize." Fred's heart raced as the voice continued, "She's not who she says she is. Watch your back." The call ended abruptly. Fred was left stunned, his mind racing. What had Bella gotten him into? Fred tried to ignore the strange phone call, but the words haunted him. He began to watch Bella closely. He noticed that she was often distracted, texting late at night and meeting with mysterious people. One evening, Fred followed Bella after she left his apartment. She led him to a secluded building in Ikoyi, where she met a group of men. Fred hid behind a tree, straining to hear their conversation. To his shock, he heard them mention something about the ritual and Fred's sacrifice. It was then that Fred realized the truth. Bella had been using him for a ritual to gain wealth, power, and status. She had manipulated him into being a part of something far darker than he could ever have imagined. Fred couldn't hold it in any longer. He confronted Bella that night, demanding the truth. Bella tried to deny it at first, but Fred pushed her harder. Finally, she admitted it. "Yes, Fred," she said, her voice cold. "I used you. You were never more than a pawn in my game. You think I loved you? That was just a means to an end. I needed your energy, your life force for a ritual. And now it's done." Fred's world shattered as Bella revealed that she had been involved in dark magic and had used him as part of a money ritual. She had used his body and his energy to gain wealth, and now that the ritual was complete, she had no use for him anymore. Fred couldn't believe what he was hearing. He felt sick, betrayed, and empty. Bella's coldness chilled him to the bone. She left him that night, without even a goodbye. Over the next few days, Fred's life fell apart. His health began to deteriorate rapidly. He felt weak, exhausted, and couldn't seem to shake off the feeling that something had been taken from him. His bank account started to drain, his investments crumbled, and his once thriving career began to fall apart. He couldn't explain what was happening, but he knew it was tied to Bella's ritual. Fred, now desperate and broken, began looking for answers. He reached out to spiritual leaders, healers, and even went to a local babalawo for guidance. He needed to understand what had happened to him, why he had been cursed. The babalawo looked him over carefully and shook his head. "Your soul is tied to something dark. Only the truth will set you free," he said, his voice solemn. Fred realized then that his only chance of survival was to confront Bella and break the curse she had placed on him. Fred finally made his way to Amina's compound, a modest but serene place surrounded by trees. When Fred entered her home, the first thing he noticed was the strange calm that filled the air. Amina, an older woman with kind eyes, welcomed him without any judgment. "I've heard of you, Fred," she said as they sat down. "But I've never seen a man so consumed by something dark before. You must have been truly blind to trust her." Fred felt the weight of her words. "I didn't know, Amina. I thought I was in love. I never knew she was using me." Amina sighed deeply. "Love blinds us, but it also exposes our deepest vulnerabilities. Bella used that against you, Fred. She was never truly interested in you. She only cared about the power she could gain." Fred didn't know what to say. His heart was heavy, knowing he had been used in the most painful way. "But I can help you," Amina continued. "It won't be easy, but it's possible to undo the damage Bella has caused. You have to confront her. You have to take back what she stole from you, and that will require strength and determination." Fred nodded. Amina's words gave him hope, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like there was a chance, maybe not just to survive, but to win. Amina's plan was simple yet intense. Fred had to face the dark forces that Bella had unleashed on him. The first step was to cleanse his soul. This meant confronting his past, the people he had hurt, and all the things he had done wrong in his life. Fred realized that the ritual Bella had conducted had not just affected his health, it had made him question everything he had stood for. He had been reckless, selfish, and blind to the consequences of his actions. Amina guided Fred through several spiritual cleanses, which involved rituals, prayers, and a lot of deep introspection. Every time Fred thought he was making progress, something would happen to pull him back, the sickness would return, the despair would resurface. But Amina told him this was normal, it meant the magic was fighting back. After weeks of struggle, Fred finally felt stronger. He felt like he had taken back control over his life, even though he still didn't fully understand the depth of the magic Bella had used on him. Fred knew that he couldn't run away from this forever. To truly break free, he needed to face Bella one last time. He had to confront her, expose her for what she had done, and reclaim his life. Amina gave him one last piece of advice. You have come far, Fred. But remember, this is not just about breaking the curse. It's about learning from your mistakes. The woman you're confronting is not the person you thought she was, but also, you need to understand that your own actions contributed to your downfall. Fred nodded. The truth of her words hit hard, but he knew they were necessary. He had to grow up. The day came when Fred found himself standing outside Bella's mansion in Lekki. He had no idea what to expect, whether she would be angry, remorseful, or cold. But he had to face her. It was the only way to truly end this nightmare. Fred knocked on the massive door of Bella's mansion. When the door opened, Fred saw Bella standing there, looking as flawless as ever. Her eyes narrowed when she saw him. What do you want, Fred? Bella's voice was as cold as ice. I'm here to end this, Fred said firmly. I know what you did to me, Bella. I know what you used me for. Bella scoffed. You don't know anything. You were nothing but a stepping stone in my plan. Fred's heart burned with anger. I've been through hell because of you. You took everything from me. Bella stepped closer to him, a wicked smile on her face. What do you think you can do, Fred? You think you can undo what's been done? Fred stared at her, his hands shaking, but his voice steady. I've learned. I've grown. And I'm not letting you control me anymore. The confrontation was tense, but Fred didn't back down. Bella tried to mock him, tried to make him feel small, but Fred held his ground. He repeated the things Amina had taught him, calling on his inner strength, reminding himself of everything he had endured. Slowly, the magic that had bound him to Bella started to weaken. Bella's face twisted with disbelief as Fred's power grew stronger. The ritual was breaking. You can't undo this, Bella spat, but Fred knew better. I can, and I will. With one final, powerful moment, Fred let out a scream, unleashing the strength that had been built over weeks of pain, cleansing, and determination. The dark forces that had controlled him were gone. Bella staggered back, her eyes wide in shock, as the magic lifted. Fred stood there, breathing heavily, as the last remnants of the dark magic dissipated. Bella fell to the ground, her face pale, her power shattered. She looked up at Fred, defeated. I didn't think you would make it, she said, her voice breaking. Fred looked at her, but there was no anger in his heart anymore, only a sense of finality. You used me. But now it's over. He turned and walked away, leaving Bella behind. He had broken free. For the first time in months, Fred felt at peace. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to rebuild his life. And this time, it would be on his terms. Fred started fresh. He went back to his old job, rebuilt his business from the ground up, and began reconnecting with old friends. The healing process was slow, but Fred had learned valuable lessons. He had learned about love, betrayal, and the importance of standing up for himself. He didn't need Bella or anyone else to define who he was. He was his own man now. The lessons of the past had shaped him into someone stronger, someone who understood the cost of lust, the price of power, and the value of inner peace. Fred spent the next year focusing on his personal growth. He helped others who were going through struggles similar to his, using his experience to guide them. He never forgot the darkness that had tried to consume him, but he used it as fuel to build a better future. Fred knew that he was finally free. He had escaped the trap of lust, of greed, and of betrayal. And in the end, that freedom was worth more than any wealth or power he had ever sought.